Hey, welcome everybody. François Letarte for my role-playing channel, and I did want to try out a top favorite role-playing game type of video. Why not? You will hear me about many role-playing games I'm talking about when I do appear here in my English channel. Uh, I wanted to make that exercise, wanted to reflect on, okay, what are the role-playing games I'm into right now, and I'm convinced that are solid, really fits my needs. And I think that reflection comes with an observation. The last 10 years, I've been exposed to many different role-playing games, many different players, more than before. Before making a YouTube channel in French and in English, it started a little bit in English. I was pretty much gaming with people I knew. I was pretty much stuck with some of the same players running around. Of course, the internet was there. There was a plenty source of advices, but not as much. Okay, and I had made a top. If you look on my actual French channel, some of the first few videos were in English, and I had my top 5 role-playing games. And that top has changed a little bit. Well, I can tell you about one game that was there, and because it deserves to be in the top, in my own taste, it's Advanced Fighting Fantasy, with which I will talk again today, but with a little bit of a different angle than back then. Okay, so why not talk about the top and why it's really fits my needs? Before going to the top, I will just finish my introduction with that. Is that the last 10 years have been very defining for me. I've made many confirmations about my own style of play. I really validated what I was searching for since the start, since I began role-playing game, and wasn't able to put my finger on. So I'm very glad that those last 10 years of being confronted or validated by the community, or everything I was reading or trying out or experimenting, just got me more strong into what I really need and what type of gamer and game master I am. So enough for the introduction. Let's go to the top. It's not in a particular order. I will start out, well, why not? There are 7 games I want to talk about. I will start with the 4 games that are kind of not in the top 3. Okay, not in a particular order again. Well, Advanced Fighting Fantasy is still there, but it's not in the top first. Okay, it's still there because that game really gives me the chills. Okay, that is the kind of game I like. Okay, it's gritty. It's lots of freedom on the game master side. And Advanced Fighting Fantasy comes with a whole bunch of cool options, with throughout many supplements that are really optional and modular. Okay, and I have the privilege to have access to the French version of the game, which has different things from the English version, and all of it is all compatible. So I have a wide array of resources. Okay, why this game is not that much in the top anymore? Well, it has been put on the side of another game I will talk to you about, which is called Chroniques Oubliées, a French role-playing game. So I will get more in detail on that game a little later. But and my fantasy needs has been replaced by this, so I don't have the same need to play fantasy and have my main fantasy game since another one took the spot. But it's still in my list. That is one of the reasons. So I don't have as much occasions to play it. And over that, something that I have discovered with this game throughout the years, because I've played it quite a while, okay, and with different groups. And I've discovered that in order to really enjoy this game, you really have to be someone who are really digging the fighting fantasy game book aspect of it. You have to be a fan of fighting fantasy game books. Because it will help you understand why this game is made that way, why the mechanic works that way, and the game world. Why is it so? Because I've played with people who were coming from other games, who were Pathfinder players, or just an example, Dungeons and Dragons players, and they were coming to Advanced Fighting Fantasy, and they were sort of disappointed because they had expectations, but their expectations were set up with the games they knew. And you come with Advanced Fighting Fantasy, which looks simplistic, but it's really not. And I was running it, with the feel of a fighting fantasy game book, but with the all unlimited options that the role-playing game offers. But they kind of not really dug it. But every time I had someone around my table who were really into fighting fantasy game books, they were really enjoying it, and it was connecting well. So if I have to come back with this game, really I will be picky about the players and try to get people who are really into fighting fantasy game books. I will start some sort of an interview. Did you read the Sorcery series without cheating? I don't know, but I know that what type of player I'm searching for this one. So yeah, it has been delayed. Maybe if I do get back into it, it will rise to the top. But for now, it's kind of on ice. Another of that 4 games I want to talk about: basic role-playing game. The classic basic role-playing game has been put aside for too long in my taste. I remember playing this in a fantasy campaign, and I really enjoyed that game. I really enjoy it, okay? I heard complaints about this game is too linear, okay? But it's really not. With percentile, you can interpret the role as much as you want. You have a lot of freedom to interpreting the role. And on the player side, it's pretty easy to evaluate, am I good in that or not? There's not much surprises, but that's okay, because when you decide to do something, you already have a part of the answer in your hand in, will I succeed? And I really love the experience, the progression of the characters, how it works, okay? You put an X beside your skill if you succeed it, and it might rises at the end of the session. So I really love that. I used to have a campaign in that. I was really enjoying it. It just was put aside by other projects, but I wish it would come back. But it's still a game that is one of my top, and I don't talk about it as much as I'd want to, but at the same time, no, I'm not playing it that much, so I don't have much to say. Okay, another one. Well, the D6 system, always been on my top. That game was a blast when I discovered it with the first edition of Star Wars, and this was the first role-playing game I read, and this makes sense. And I love how this game really emulates the action and the Fast and Furious aspect of Star Wars. And I just think that the game went wrong with the second edition of Star Wars. Back then I was really excited by the second edition, but looking back at it, the first edition had it all. And some aspect of the second edition, I'm using it in the first edition, but the first edition is right on the spot. Some work has to be done with the first edition of Star Wars if we just talk about this game and this game world. But it's very easy to modify it and to eyeball it, make some rulings about this, because that game really invites you to do that. Okay, so every time I ran D6 Star Wars or D6 anything else, Men in Black, I did some Men in Black. It was very easy to capture the feel of the setting and have it well done and on the table, and having the player enjoy this. There's a version of one of my favorite game author, Grumpf. It's a French author that very prolific, is an independent writer, and he has made his own version of the D6 system, which is available in English on Drive-Thru. It's called Lil 6. And for me, it's a quite good evolution of the D6 system. It really adds up some cool stuff to what is already there. And since the D6 system is pretty freeform and Okay, you can do pretty much what you want with it. It adds up well. Okay, it goes in the right direction from the first version of Star Wars instead of what second edition of Star Wars and everything Western Games did after, did, because I do think that they went on the wrong direction for the wrong reasons. But who knew? Those games had success anyway. All right, and the fourth game of that 4 games that it's kind of my top 7, but not the top. Well, Metamorphosis Alpha, first edition, by the way, really got through me. Okay, this is a very old school game, mostly 50 years old, considered to be the first science fiction role-playing game ever published. And yeah, why this game is in my top is because every time I ran the game, I really felt my GM muscles being stretched to the most. Okay, I really felt that I was exercising myself and trying to get the best of my GMing ability, because that game has no net. You have to come up with rules for many situations. Of course, there are rules in the books, and the rules really announces you what the game will be about. There will be about mutations, poisons, radiations, combat. But the players will try anything to survive and get their loot and everything. And I really feel that game does it, okay? I really feel that every time I played this game, it was getting the best out of me, okay? And it was getting the best out of me for the greatness of a session. And I felt that I succeed most of the time in getting that, but since the game has no answers for you, you have to be a right judge, okay, a fair judge in every situation. And yeah, I have a secret fantasy of running a real campaign of that, getting through many adventures with some heroes who survives. That game is rough on the player characters, but that game really, I do have the feeling that when you succeed and you survive and you get to the next adventure, this is a great victory for a player character. Yeah, you will really enjoy being successful in this game. All right, let's go to the top most 3. Okay, in no particular order. Hero Kids. Yes, Hero Kids, a role-playing game for kids. It's in my top and probably will last forever in it. It's been, more than 10 years, mostly 12 years I've been using and running that game to hundreds of kids. And I'm not even getting bored of that game. There's always something exciting every time I run the game. With, of course, kids who will dig the thing. So it's really well made for them. And what makes this simple game good is that I can keep the challenge every time. They can feel challenged. The dice, there's a thrill every time you roll the dice, and I can still feel that they can be challenged. Even though they can, I have tried a campaign with some kids with the progression system that was published to make the characters level up, okay? And even with high-powered character, I was still able to keep them challenged. That is the secret of Hero Kids. So I'm having a blast with that. And I've tried many role-playing games for kids, and I'm always coming back with this one. It works pretty well. I do recommend it, okay? This is an awesome game. Really hits the spot. And my recommendation, if you want to try it out, it's supposed to be aimed for kids from 4 to 10 years old. Well, if you have 4-year-old kids, one kid and its parent with the game master, it's enough. 15-minute session, 1 room, 1 combat, 1 little treasure. 5-year-old kids, you can go with a little more elaborate adventure, but 5-year-old kids you must have adults around the table playing with them, okay? And at 6 years old, well, it can be left alone with the game master, and it works pretty well from that point. Yes, Hero Kids is in my top. All for One Régime Diabolique, that game has set up into as being one of my best role-playing game, and for many reasons. The first one, the setting, it already won me. This is my favorite game setting ever. 17th century, you're playing musketeers, so what else can you ask for? And there are some supernatural enemies to fight, demons, werewolves, vampires. This is the first role-playing game that make me respect vampires, because I don't really like them in any form of fiction or game or whatever. But it is the first time that a vampire was okay. This is the real deal. First of all, and the game system, Ubiquity. This is the only Ubiquity game that I really think I will try, because the other games that were published are not really getting my attention. But Ubiquity is a rough diamond that you have to be patient, because you have to practice it. You have to fit it to what you need, because that game gives you high thrill and challenges when you master it. But that game needs patience, needs practice, and that's what I had with many different with many different games I've been involved to, and it really gets me. Okay, some complaints I heard about the game is that if you have a character who is overpowered with one of his skills, let's say combat, is unbeatable. Well, not that much. Okay, he can still be challenged. I have experimented it, and I was able to make evil the most powerful characters into hard situations where everything on this sheet was mattering. Okay, every numbers can be used as a dice roll and to fit your needs. So as a game master, this is a great organic tool. It's like playing classical music. Okay, you don't have a backtrack and everything. You have the instrument there, but you have to practice it in order to make that the most out of it. Yeah, you need practice. So it's the same type of game, very organic. Okay, everything is there, but you need to learn how to use it. The game just won't, throwing it on the table and reading it the day before will feel a little blame and little bleach and vanilla, but no, it's not. This is a very rich game that just needs to be practiced to get the most out of it. And I do recommend that game. Last game, but not the least, a French role-playing game. And you're not fortunate to talk in English, because this is a great version of Dungeons and Dragons in my sense that will never get in English. Chroniques Oubliées, published by Black Book Editions, a French game publisher. And yes, this is some sort of Dungeons and Dragons game. And this is the most surprising top game. I never expected to have a Dungeons and Dragons game into my top like that, but this one is. First of all, Dungeons and Dragons, I have a love-hate relation with the game. There's many aspects that I love, yet many aspects that was hitching me while playing, and would want me to go with other games. And I never thought that a game that was Chroniques Oubliées is a sort of a OGL 3.5, a lighter version of it. Which, when I first heard of the game, I felt that, okay, this is 3.5 with some stuff missing. But with time, I got my hand into it, trying it with some kids, with the light version of the game. And even with the light version, I felt that, this is something. On the player's side, they have their character sheets and their capacities that they can unlock with leveling up. And the real rules of the game are on their sheet. And they feel awesome. They have high fantasy characters that can do that. Okay, so if they want to do something, I want to do that. They do it. They use their capacity and apply it. And of course, they can do whatever they want. And on the Game Master's side, well, you have a lot of freedom to make rulings and all of that. You don't have strict rules. You have the basic D20 plus modifier, the same kind of difficulty level of the third edition era, and you have a lot of freedom. Okay, of course there are rules. They are all optional, and the game really invites you to make that optional. Okay, I don't know if I'm spelling it right. Okay, so, and it feels like when I first ran Dungeons and Dragons in my life and I had to come up with rules, like Metamorphosis Alpha, okay? But with a more tighter net, if you want to rely on something to justify what you're doing to the player, but no restrictions at all. I really feel like I'm a free game master trying to make the best call on everything is happening, okay? Combat happens, it flows out quite well. And the book itself, because at some point I got to the full game, and the full game really got me. It's been 3 years, intense, okay? So I've tried the game a lot, okay? As for now, well, I ran maybe 200 sessions of Chroniques Oubliées, maybe more. And I have a blast every time I run it. Okay, yeah, of course there are some incoherent rules that is typical to Dungeons and Dragons, but at the same time, the way the game is made, I can really circle those with rulings that are easy for me to do, and I'm making house rules and it fits well. Okay, it's really the best of both worlds. What are those both worlds? The need for the new generation to have high fantasy, mostly superheroic characters, and the feel for me to run the game as I want and make it as gritty as I want. And yeah, it works pretty well. Okay, I'm really amazed on how this game worked its way out into my top, and probably will stay there. That's the game that put aside Advanced Fighting Fantasy in my top, and I feel that it will be there for quite some time. I'm running the first edition of the game right now, but the second edition came out this year. I've read a little bit about it. I don't think I will transfer myself to the second edition, even though second edition, it looks awesome. But I'm too much in the first version with all my house rules. So I see the second edition as suggestion to make some house rules of my own that I already applied, by the way. I already applied some stuff from the second edition to this first edition of Chroniques Oubliées. So that was why up. That was a quite long video, but yeah, I felt that I needed to do it. Hope you enjoyed it. So that was it. François Letarte for my role-playing channel, and up to next time, I hope you have as much fun in your life as in your games. Goodbye.